Hey guys, we have the Ryobi 40 volt power station here. This is a 3000 watt surge unit. It'll take up to 4 batteries. There's a lot of things that this unit does well, and there's a few things that it doesn't do. We're gonna go over this top to bottom, show you it in a lot of different situations, so you can make sure that this unit is right for you before purchase. Stay tuned. Ryobi is not new to the inverter market. They've made gas inverters and gas generators for quite some time. They also have a gen control app that you can use to control those gas inverters, and this battery inverter is also part of that app. So you might hear my phone beeping every once in a while. It's because we're currently connected. It also connects up to your watch. If you have a watch that's connected to your phone, lets you know different things that are happening. You can control the inverter, turn it on and off. You can see the wattage, what's happening with the batteries. But there's some things that you need to watch out for in there, so I'll walk you through that. First, let's just talk about this and some things that surprise me. Because Ryobi has other inverters, especially gas ones, I was a little bit surprised when I looked at this inverter and seen that you could run this unit in parallel. So there's a WEN parallel port that you can buy. There's also a Ryobi one if you'd like to use their branded stuff, where you just plug 2 wires into here, plug 2 wires into a secondary inverter that you have, and you can then get 220 or up your power that's getting put out by putting the 2 units together. Now, the first question I can't answer for you is, can you run this one in parallel with a gas unit? And I'm gonna guess yes, but I can't give you that exact information. I'm going to try it in a week and a half, so I'll upload that to social media. First on this, you can run anything from 1 to 4 batteries, and it really doesn't matter what batteries you're using. I have 2 6 amp hour batteries in here and 2 4 amp hour batteries in here. And what is important on this is you can see I have the 2 4 amp hour batteries are of different generations. So as with a lot of other inverters we've seen, when you put some of the older batteries in, they're not exactly happy as far as what the unit is going to see, how much they need to be charged, or the battery life or fuel meter on the front. So if you have a bunch of older batteries that you're using, the fuel gauge on the front might not be accurate. And we found that also when charging. So let me just run you through a quick situation that I found while I was charging this unit. So if you'll notice, number 2 here is showing a full charge, but when you come around, we're only getting 3 bars. So the front is not exactly right all the time. If we go to number 3, which would be this guy, we have 1 bar, and it's showing us 2. I don't think that that's a huge deal with not having an exact battery life on the front, especially when you're dealing with different types of batteries all over the board. But while you're charging this unit, you have a adapter here that is 42 volt 1.5 amp. So you're going to charge each battery one at a time. It's going to go from port 1, 2, 3, and 4 and go through and charge the batteries. 1.5 amps is not fast, and it's going to take some time for you to charge this, and especially if you have the larger 6 amp hour batteries in here. So to me, this is one of those things that if you have 4 batteries, you almost are going to put it up to charge overnight and then use it the next day. That is a little bit disappointing, but what we see very common throughout all these inverters. So you're not going to get a quick charge. If you need a quick charge on these batteries to come back or to start interfacing them with something else, you need to have a separate charger somewhere else that can be plugged in and charge batteries, so you can move it back and forth from this unit to the charger. A little awkward, and especially with the fact that there's really no solar port in here and no way to charge this unit while the batteries are in it, so you can't use the power and output at the same time. So that's a little bit of a bummer. Let's get into plugging this guy into something while it is not plugged in to our outlet and actually use it as an inverter and see how it does. So I have the app set up here. I have my fluke gauge over here. You can see we're running at 128 volts. And just under 60 hertz. This is a pure sine wave unit. They have it listed here at 15 amp, but if you look through the specs, it's going to be rated basically at 13.2 amps. And they also rate this at 1800 watts, but realistically, it's going to be a 1600 watt continuous, and it'll hold 1800 watts for about 3 minutes, then it'll overload. You can see here on our load level, and that will match up with this down here, as long as we keep our phone running. I have a Milwaukee heat gun here, rated at 1400 watts. Let's just turn this on and see what happens across the board. You can see our voltage drop slightly, which it's right where it should be. Hertz is still good, happy there, but we are running 1440 watts, 88% load. Things are looking pretty good. This is just what you would see at a fairly high load for this. Obviously 88% is going to be where this is going to be almost peaked out at. So you can run a heat gun on high on this unit. Let's just drop it down to low and see what happens. Our voltage came up. Wattage stayed the same. Nope, there it finally dropped. 50% load. Kick it back up for a second. It's obviously slow. We can see our voltage drop. There we go at our 1400 watts. So let's put something else on here. So lots of people will want to use this camping, and you can see nothing is currently on. Where our voltage has come down to 124, which is good. It's interesting to see it moving slightly. Look at hertz again, still the same place. This is just one of the hot plates per se that we use while we're camping. I'm gonna just turn this guy on to 275. And this is gonna max it out. We'll go up a little bit. I don't think it's gonna matter where it's at. It needs to heat up. So 1530 watts, 94%. We are pushing this guy right off the bat. There we go. 120 volts. I'm happy to see it holding that, and we are definitely heating up here and holding steady. Now, I'd like to just push it slightly beyond and see how the surge goes. So I'm going to plug in our heat gun, and we can see we have a fan that's turned on, or here we can have a fan that's turned on the inverter. That's not the heat gun. We're losing some battery in our 4 amp hours, and we just dropped one cell in our, or one bar in our 6 amp hour. So this is definitely pushing this. And there's the fan turning on higher. We're going to push this with another 800 watts. I'm just going to put this on low, and I'm going to leave it there really just quickly on, quickly off to see if this is going to be able to take a surge. And I mean, I didn't have it on for more than a second, and we ended up with system overload. So we can reset this from our phone, which is nice. And there we go, right back up and running. Of course, this unit's just, there's no electronics or switch there. So it's nice that they have the Gen app, or the Gen Control app, that we can do this. Let's just, I want to show you in frame how quickly this 800 watts just took this right out. Boom, done, and we're off. So it's a little disheartening because we're only going up to 2400 watts, and as soon as we get there, this thing's out, complete. So I just want to hit it one more time. I'm going to hit it full, which doesn't matter, but I want to watch what happens to the voltage. So we definitely dropped voltage very quickly. Reset it again. I'm going to pull this guy out, just see how we stabilize. Many times we think of these units as completely silent because they're battery operated. But you can hear this fan, and it's kicking out some pretty warm air, and it's nice that it's going to go up and down as needed. I think our heating surface just got up to temperature. but this fan here is going to keep everything inside as cool as it probably can, but it's also going to drain the battery. You know, we're not going to get an exact amount of energy from these batteries that's going to transfer over. So we're going to lose a little bit in the transformation from DC to AC and to run some of these fans. So we are definitely heating this guy up a little bit and running through some battery by running this hot plate. So I'd like to plug in a Shop-Vac. This is a workshop vac. It's rated at 6.5 peak horsepower. We know it's not, but it is a larger unit. Let's just kick this guy on, see what happens. So I did see this drop down to the 118s quickly, not a big deal. Interestingly enough, we can see here I've done nothing to charge this and all our batteries are full again. So if I push the bar or the buttons to check them, they're all coming back with 4 bars, but here, or 3 bars, excuse me, but here it's telling me we have 4 bars. So again, we have a little bit here that is not reading exactly what the batteries are. Let's kick this Shop-Vac on one more time. So this is taking some power to start up. You'll see this drops to 109. We completely didn't have that on, but either way, this is more important. So dropping to 109 is not a big deal because what we're doing is basically at 90%. It's good that it held it, didn't drop below 109. But we're pushing this thing again, and when it's turned on, you can see that these different bars will adjust slightly. So let's keep moving, try something else. Corded circular saws can take a lot of power on startup and also while you're going through the wood, but let's just see if this thing can take some of the startup current draw. That is a big no, and we are just dealing with a standard 15 amp saw. This is just Sidewinder, not even, not even a worm drive saw. This is a 15 amp saw, so let's just try this one more time. Watch our voltage. It's interesting, that time it took it. Let's try one more. We got down to the low 100s over here. This is definitely not going to be something that you could actually use and cut wood with, because as soon as you got into some wood, unless you just edged your way through it, you would be drawing too much power for this unit. So something to note with this, we're testing with 2 6 amp hour batteries that come with it, and we've added 2 4 amp hour batteries, which I think is fairly normal as to what people at home might have. But if you didn't have these batteries, you actually do decrease some of the power. And I will tell you, both of these 4 amp hour batteries are fairly warm. So I think it's worth testing this out again and looking at it with 2 6 amp hour batteries in it. Let's just turn this heat gun on again. We were at 90% with it. Let's see what it does. If I keep this away from the microphone, you could see we dropped into the 117s here quickly, and we're losing battery on this fairly fast. I'm just going to turn this on one more time. Watch our voltage. 116. So when we turned this on before, we didn't see that drop in load level, still 89%, 1442 watts, but we're still holding. Now, what they say is that we can remove batteries while we're live and put them back in, but they say to reduce the load. So this still kind of ghosts me that I have a battery on here, but it's going to tell me I'm low. System low voltage, and I should be able to pop a battery back in without issue. It'll pick it back up, let me know what's going on. But it is flashing system low voltage, which is interesting because here we're good. Maybe it means low voltage in the batteries. Let's just kick this on one more time, see what happens. We're matching up on the front. Well, it's showing 3 bars now. If I pull this off, we're at 2. So the front of this is a little bit optimistic compared to what the batteries actually show. Sticking with 2 batteries in here, I use these things quite a bit while we're out in the field. If something has a low battery, I find that I'm constantly hooking up a battery charger to these, and it works out fairly well as long as I stay on low voltage. And I want to see what this one is. I'm running just basically a 2 amp charger to a 12 volt battery. We're not affecting voltage, 85 watts. If I go up to a 15 amp charge, I have no issue here at all. I mean, this is what I would expect. This should run a very long time. But when I go up to the 100 amp, which still isn't going to push this wattage, I don't believe, I always end up with trouble on almost all of these. And this one seems to be holding it, although it's telling me full charge, and it is definitely not. And there we go with what this unit is doing. See this, we're getting a flip, flip, flip in a 0 watts. It's trying to give me the power, but it is unable to. I'm really unsure. I don't believe I'm overloading this. It's just not happy with this charger or any of the other chargers I have when I go for a full 100 amp starting watt. So if you're going to use it for charging and want to start your vehicle based off of it by using the 100 amp engine start thing, it's not going to work for whatever reason. To show the importance of batteries in this, I'm going to remove the 6 amp hour batteries, which are actually fairly warm over here, and that of course would turn the unit off, no big deal. We can push and hold to turn this guy back on. We have one single 4 amp hour battery. Our other 4 amp hour is sitting right here. So to me, battery power here is going to give us a significant, or the amp hour of our battery that we use is going to be fairly significant in this. We're back to what is 90% use on this heater. So the heat gun, just turn it on and see if we can even use this with one 4 amp hour battery. You can see we dropped down to 118, but we normalized again. And we're quickly down to nothing and overloaded. So again, we're saying decent charge. And interestingly enough, these batteries, this 4 amp hour here, is showing 3 bars. So it is warm, I'll give it that. It just had 1 bar in there before. This guy here showing 3 bars. 2 4 amp hour batteries in here. We're up and running again. No, this didn't reset. Sometimes the app and this aren't always happy, but most of the time they work together. Let's just kick this guy on and see what happens. 116. We immediately dropped to 2 bars, and we're still showing, well, we're showing 2. but I assume this is going to drop down quickly. If you are going to run this on just 2 4-amp-hour batteries, I don't think this is going to do a great job for you on higher powered items. If you're going to stay 1,000 watts and below, I think you'd be good, but you're going to watch this just tick itself down very quickly. Now, interestingly enough, the 4-amp-hour battery in the back is showing 2 bars, but as it's showing it, it's blinking. So I'm assuming we're pulling a lot of power out of that older 4-amp-hour battery that it's really not meant to. Again, down to 1 bar. It's going to tell us really soon that we're low on voltage and we need to do something about our batteries. Having 6-amp-hour batteries in this, if not having 4 6-amp-hour batteries in this, is going to be something you're going to want to do. The Gen Control app here is actually pretty cool. When you look through it, you can change a lot of your settings. You can adjust the backlight, the task light that's on front, which is pretty cool, is usually accessible here. It's just not always the quickest. So you can see sometimes it turns on, the task light's on, we can turn it off. And they do have it set up nice, so if you're using this at night, you can turn on a red light, you can turn it on so it's more of a flashlight, or that it'll blink. And it blinks usually if it runs into a different situation that is not happy with. Sometimes the app is slow. There's a lot of different things that you can do, add more generators, forget these generators. You get back to the main screen, you can turn the AC power on and off, which is nice and it works quick. We can shut this down completely. And we're all set. The one thing that this really doesn't allow you to do is turn itself back on. You have to come in and push this button. So the things I want you to walk away from this video knowing: 1,500 to 1,600 watts is the max that this thing really is going to do. So look at that along with your amperage, because 13.2 amps is realistically where this is happy. You could see that we just simply turned on our skill saw and boom, off. So you don't want to run something that's going to be 15 amps or even pull quite a bit constantly, because that's going to not only be hard on the batteries, hard on everything else, but you're going to get some cutouts. There's nothing here that's going to take the 3,000 watts, that surge, because we tried to do the surge, but it really didn't work out well, and our surge was really only 2,400 watts. Now, it was probably going to be an over amp draw on that surge, but either way, the issue that we have here is, are you going to be able to find something that isn't going to have that crazy amp draw in the wattage? This will work for like a heated blanket if you wanted to take it out and watch a soccer game or something and stay warm, as long as you stay right under that 1,400 watts. But this should do it. Most heated blankets are probably in that area. Some people are going to ask me if you can run a whole house off this thing. No. Can you run a refrigerator? Yes. Can you run a TV? Yes. Can you run a crock pot? Some. Now you're going to have to watch that, because there are going to be some crock pots that are going to be up there in their wattage because of the heating units that are in them. So it's not going to run a microwave. You're just going to have to watch, and don't look at the 1,800, 1,600, 13.2 amps and go. Now, it also makes a big difference if you're going to invest in their batteries. In some of the things that we tested, right, we tested with 2 6-amp-hour batteries, which are huge, right, especially when we compare them to the 4s. So if you had 4 6s, you might get a little bit better performance, as it would hold the amperage up, the DC amperage pulled from the batteries inside. But realistically, that's an expense, a serious expense, to not only buy this unit, but then to buy 2 more 6-amp-hour batteries. That's something where you put all this stuff together and you have to wonder, okay, what am I really trying to accomplish with how much money? These things rock. There's a lot of cool things about them. They're not inexpensive, but they do work. So if you have the use, just make sure that you don't buy this and put in very small batteries and expect it to really put out the power, because as we showed you, even running 2 4-amp-hour batteries, it doesn't have the runtime nor really have the power to put out power for you to use. 1 4-amp-hour battery, basically a no bueno, not going to go. So I think it's important to know those things, because if you just read off the box, your expectations of what's going to happen here are pretty high. And I don't think that that's really what you should walk into a larger purchase thinking that the expectations on the box are true. And while they might be true, it's the same thing that the Shop-Vac I plugged in. It's not 6.5 horsepower. That's what they rate it for. It might hit it for like a nanosecond, but that's not a 6.5 horsepower vacuum. And this is not a 3,000 watt inverter. Marketing, how they put it out there. You just have to educate yourself a little bit and know that you can't buy this to run an RV. Now, I will sidetrack and say I am very interested in this because I have an RV that has a residential refrigerator on the inside, and sometimes while we're out, if we're boondocking or anything, I want to be able to plug something in that is not going to screw up anything on the inside. I've had a different brand of this before. Blew up my non-residential or camping. It was a 12-volt fridge, and it blew up my inverter. So I'm very hesitant to use something like this. I need to do a ton more testing, and it was good to see that we didn't see any voltage in the 130s, but when I first turned it on, we were at 128. That was a touch high, but either way, I'm not plugging this into my RV just yet, and I would caution you too, because I had some major expenses after the last one that I plugged in, not this brand, different brand. But that to me is something that I want to be able to do, is go somewhere, just run my refrigerator. I can run everything else off of 12 volt, but that's an expense that I'm not willing to accept yet. So with this, I'm just going to do more testing, and I'll get back to you on if it works. As always, guys, we appreciate your time. Give us a like in this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Have a great day.